Let's get more on this, of course, right now, because we're going to talk to United We Stand editor Andy Mitten. So first of all, Andy, what's your reaction to this news? Is this relief? Does this leave a bitter taste in your mouth? Where do you stand on this?
Been an awful season. I've got some sympathy for Erik Ten Hag. He delivered Manchester United's first trophies since 2017. As a journalist, he was always good to deal with. He was always personable. He gave us good interviews. The FA Cup win in May was one of the highlights of Manchester United's recent history. But this season has been a nightmare so far. Last season's 8th was a big disappointment. In mitigation, as he kept pointing out, there were serious injuries. But even though United played well at West Ham yesterday in the first half, it was still another defeat. The European form has been really poor. Last season in Europe, Manchester United finished bottom of one of the weakest Champions League groups. There's been 3 European games this season. There's not been a win yet so far. Yes, it's difficult to get a draw in Porto, but Manchester United were comfortably in front. A draw in Fenerbahce is not a bad result. But in the context of the other games, the lack of goals, there's been a real decrease in support for Erik Ten Hag. After the FA Cup final, I did a poll and I asked Manchester United fans, should Erik Ten Hag be kept on? And 85% said yes. 60,000 people voted. That has been coming down ever since. And I felt that after the 20 home game a few weeks ago, Erik Ten Hag lost the moderates. That's not people online demanding a managerial change after every defeat. That's moderate, sensible people. And I know what it's like at the game. I stand outside the ground. I speak to lots of different people of all different ages who go to Manchester United matches home and away. And I just felt he'd lost it after the 20 game. Tottenham, Liverpool, comprehensive home defeats at Old Trafford were really bad to take. And just look at the league table today. It just got to be much better. I don't think Erik Ten Hag ever gave up. And I think his players have got to share some of the responsibility. It's not his fault that they've been missing all of these chances, that they've not scored enough goals. His game plan yesterday in the first half was absolutely solid. But in the second half, Manchester United slipped into a more individual mentality and West Ham capitalised on that. So I feel it's not something Manchester United fans will be celebrating. There's been too many managerial changes. And 6 months in, I really felt that Erik Ten Hag was onto something. I remember sitting down with him on a mid-season break in Spain with some other journalists, and United were playing really good football, won the League Cup, knocked a good Barcelona team out of Europe, and it was good to watch. But last season was poor. The FA Cup win was really good, and this season has been really poor at the start.
Andy, he spent over £600 million on players. 2 questions in one. How many of those worked out, in your opinion, and how many of those actually should take some of the responsibility of this?
I think they should all take some of the responsibility because he put faith into those players and too many of them have been underperforming. So players, as they should with the previous managers who've lost their jobs, should take some responsibility. And they know that as well. And the new manager, the new interim, he's going to have a very difficult job as well because it's fundamentally the same players. But your point about recruitment is also legitimate. I don't think that recruitment under Erik Ten Hag looks good at the moment. Too many of the players have flopped. A huge amount of money has been spent. And it's just been a continuation of poor recruitment that we've seen at Old Trafford in the last decade. Manchester United have spent a fortune. And the majority of the signings have not been a success. You're showing Lisandro Martinez. He's one who has been a success, at least in his first season alongside Rafael Varane, when he was excellent, less so this season. And it's been a challenge. And Erik Ten Hag brought more players in the summer. And there were a lot of Manchester United fans saying, great, recruitment has been good. We're going to be decent again now. And I was very circumspect. I'm like, you don't know enough about these players. Let's just judge in 6 months' time. And I don't think any of the new signings have been outstanding successes. But then it's difficult playing for Manchester United. And it's difficult managing Manchester United. And as you pointed out before me, Erik Ten Hag had to deal with a strategic review and the uncertainty around that a year ago. big issues like Cristiano Ronaldo, Mason Greenwood, which were not his doing. And I think he dealt with them in a way which was as best as could be expected. He got other stuff wrong. You know, some of his in-game decisions frustrated fans. And in terms of the way he dealt with the media, he was great with me, I've got to say. But there were other times where he should have been more charismatic. And I knew that there was a side of him where he actually was charismatic. I would have a good laugh with him. I saw him in Trondheim the first game pre-season. I'm like, just give me a list of the clubs you went to in Ibiza. And he's just like, what? I said, which clubs? He went, I didn't go to any clubs in Ibiza. You know, I was negotiating my job. And it's only football. You can let the side of yourself be more public and people see you for who you are. But it's very difficult in a press conference environment where you've got 5, 6, 7 minutes and you're being cornered with questions, and it's very difficult to answer them if the team have not been good enough. And Manchester United have not been good enough. But that cup final, which you're showing there, I interviewed him immediately after that, right outside the dressing room. And he was absolutely buzzing. He said it's been a bucket list for him to win the FA Cup final. Nobody fancied Manchester United that day against Manchester City. And the team prevailed, and tactically he got it spot on. I couldn't have seen that a few weeks before after United had been hammered at Crystal Palace. And also you've showed footage of the League Cup win against Newcastle United. It's another great day for Manchester United. No, it's not Champions League victories, it's not doubles, it's not trebles, but let's be realistic. Manchester United are so far off that level at the moment. That's not Erik Ten Hag's problem.
Look, Andy, you talk about his personality, because I would back you up in that. I had a sit down with him and I found him very, very personable indeed. But I think that when he went into press conferences, I think it came across that he was almost being given mixed messages. You know, he talked about fairy tales and lies, and it seemed very genuine for him that he felt he was being told one thing and yet the press and the media were presenting with another thing. Do you think that was part of his downfall as well? Is because he has, it would appear, been given very mixed messages from the hierarchy?
Yeah, I think you're right, but you can't change the man who he is. So when I interviewed him for United We Stand, and look, I've never hid who I support, I saw one side of Erik Ten Hag, where he's telling me about being a 20 fan as a kid, and he's relaxing and we're having a good conversation and he's asking questions back, and he's a bit cheeky as well. I remember in New Jersey before pre-season last year, Bruno Fernandes had just been made captain, and I got my words wrong in the press conference. I said, Bruno Fernandes has just been made manager. And he went, oh, manager, yeah? I went, sorry, I meant captain. He went, manager. And I went, no, I'm just thinking for 2 years' time. And he said, oh, you're only giving me 2 years. And I'm obviously flustered and it's live on TV. And he saw me the next day and he called me over. He said, have you got any other good questions for me? And why not? You know, it was my slip. He's having a bit of fun. And I had a few moments with him like that. And last week when I went to the press conference, I had a difficult question because I was concerned about the way Manchester United are. And my question was, what can you see that your critics cannot see? But before that, I just climbed Kilimanjaro with Brian Robson, and he said, before I start, I want to talk about that. So I had to tweak my question to, you know, just climb the mountain. Mountains are there to be climbed, Erik. And he was good, and I do think he's a good human. I heard really good things about him in Manchester. He was cycling around. He had time for people in as much as that is possible when you are Manchester United's manager and everyone's telling you how to do your job. And him and his family integrated into the community. And I just catch him sometimes after games and he'd say, what are you doing this week? I'd be like, I'm going to India with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And he's like, why are you doing that? And I tell him and he's just like, can't get his head around it. So there's a human side people absolutely didn't see. Then again, before the Newcastle game, in May, it was a big game at Old Trafford. I said, what do you want from the fans? And he should have hit that question out the park. He should have been standing on the desk punching, we need everybody behind us. And his answer was pretty disappointing. But I do think he's a good person. Obviously, he'll get a good payoff. He did very well at Ajax. He's done well at his previous clubs. And I wish him well in the future. Yeah, absolutely. The bottom line is, it is the future of Manchester United that all the fans are going to be now very, very concerned about. Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to take charge of the team, interim charge.
Two questions then in one. I'm sorry, we're going to have to be brief on this, but could you see him getting it permanently? And if not, who does?
I don't know about Ruud permanently. Good man. I think he showed a lot of promise as a coach at PSV, and then it ended in a way which neither party would have wanted. He looks really well. I'm not sure he's going to stay looking well now he's Manchester United manager. Hopefully he can give the team a lift, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did when he initially came in as caretaker. He's respected as a player. It was a very popular decision to bring him back. He's written a foreword for my new book, which I really appreciated. He's a good person, but Erik Ten Hag was a good person as well. Ruud's going to have a very, very difficult job because these players are nowhere near as good the level of previous Manchester United sides. Their pay packets might be, but they're just nowhere. They're trying the best, but they're just not technically good enough in the case of a lot of them, not all of them. There are reasons for optimism. There's young players, Garnacho, Menu, Højlund, Bruno Fernandes is a top player. But Ruud's got a very difficult job, and the pressure is always intense at Manchester United.
It certainly is. OK, thank you, Andy, as always. Good to speak to you.
Thank you.
Right, you can see Ruud van Nistelrooy's Manchester United against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. It's one of 6 games live for you on Sky Sports Main Event and Sky Sports Plus, with some absolute crackers in there as well. The quarter-final draw will follow the match between Tottenham and Manchester City. And up next in the Premier League for Manchester United is Chelsea. It's on Super Sunday from 4 p.m. on Sky Sports Premier League.